Good afternoon. My name is Lynn Lawrence, and I will be speaking to you today about delegation versus abdication. Okay, so first of all, what qualifies me to speak about this? Well, 30 years of military service, and then I got my master's degree in organizational leadership. I like leadership. I have found that I've worked for some good leaders that have really helped our unit and our organization accomplish a lot. And I saw firsthand how these leaders made a difference in everyone up under them. I mean, they took responsibility. They understood the value of leadership. They understood the value of training their staff. They understood the value of feedback. It was just absolutely amazing. And so I had the opportunity to see a lot of different types of leadership styles over my lifetime. And uh, one area that really kind of sticks out is the difference between delegating and abdicating. Because in delegation, you're really going to have an opportunity to share and trust your subordinates to do what needs to be done. Where abdication is just, for lack of a better term, you were kind of lazy and you just shirked your responsibilities off. We're going to talk about it more in a more technical way in just a second. But I like to welcome you to the topic because not everyone is a leader. Just because you might own a organization or you own a practice, it doesn't really make you a leader. That makes you an owner. And so, do you know what leading means? Do you know what leading is? And so, we're going to break down this one topic, and we're not going to spend all day on it. We're going to just lay it out there for you. I only have 9 slides to go over so that we can actually talk about delegating versus abdicating. So, the first thing I want to tell you about a leader is a leader understands the mission, the vision, the goals of and they even understand the people. Do you know who works for you? You know anything about them? Do you know what they like or don't like? What's going to make them stay? What's going to make them leave? In our industry right now, turnover is at an all-time high. And I was in uh, Atlanta when a national HR rep was giving a talk, and he said it cost your practice a minimum of $3,500 every time you turn over an employee. That's $3,500 you never get back. So it's probably a good idea to kind of learn the people. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. The processes within the organization. The leader needs to understand the processes. Yeah. How can you make sure that it's a problem with the process, or is it a problem with the people? You don't know the difference because you don't know the processes or you don't know the people. So it's so important to understand and be able to connect those together. And then what is success? What is a failure? It's different from every office I go to. I'm a consultant. And so I go in and I ask the office, the practice administrator or the owner, what do you see as a success for your organization? Or what do you see as a failure for your organization? And so I need to get a good, clear definition of that before we can move forward. And then feedback. Oh, my word. This is one of the most valuable parts of being a leader. Um, you can think you're the best leader on the planet, but here's a test. You ask your subordinates, say, hey, line up behind me if you want to follow me to the next phase. When you turn around, if there's someone there, you've had an impact. If you turn around, there's no one there. I got news for you. You've been fooling yourself about being the leader, because I can honestly tell you, people truly want to be led. I'm not, I want to talk politics just for a brief second. It doesn't matter which side of the line you're on. You want your party to do well. You want your leaders in the party to do well. And so when you see them doing well, you can cheer for them. But when they're not doing so well, it's more frustrating. There's no difference in any organization or any work area. When the leaders do well, the people do well. When the leaders don't do well, well, there's chaos. There's turnover, there's a lot of issues. So it's so important to understand your leadership style, your leadership uh, your leadership trends, your strong areas, your weak areas. I personally know where my weak areas are. One of my weak areas is I don't do well on the empathy side when emotions get involved because I'm more focused on the mission, the vision. I do focus on the people. I care about the people, but the emotional thing is just not my best area. I'm working on it though because I am a leader and I want to be better at every area. So keep that in mind. So let's look at how definitions, when you look up what delegation and abdication is, let's look and see what happens. Delegation is the assignment of authority to another person. That means I'm going to say, let's say I have a young lady named Susie that was working for me, and there's a task that needs to be done, and I can't be there to do it. I can't be there to lead it, but I trust Susie, so I'm going to delegate my authority. You will listen to Susie as if I'm here, and you're going to make sure that you follow through on everything she tells you. And that's me pretty much giving my authority to someone else. Delegation is a core concept of management leadership because if you don't ever trust your people, you don't ever delegate to them. You can these are the leaders that say, the ones that refuse to delegate, oh, if I go on vacation, the place is going to fall apart. No, it's not going to fall apart. Let's just say this. Good leaders learn to delegate because out of necessity, because you can't be there all the time. You need to make sure you elevate your people up so that they can start receiving areas of leadership. So one day you're growing a leader, you're not growing an employee. So keep that in mind. Let's look at abdication. Basically renouncing or a failure to fulfill your responsibility or your position. You hear chaos going out in the clinic, and you're like, oh, God, I pray they don't come back here and tell me or ask me anything or make me get up from my desk and go out there and do anything. Abdicating is one of the most destructive leadership styles in leadership and management. And I see it when I go into an office. People ask me, do you ever worry about going out of business, Lynn? No, because as a consultant, our main responsibility is to teach people to work with people. And people at the top, when they don't know how to work with people, it becomes very, very problematic for them and the entire organization. Abdication will show up when you don't know how to lead and you're frustrated as the people that work for you. It's very difficult to lead when you are burnt out and you don't have answers as well. Abdication is really a bad thing. It's like the king of a country saying, I no longer want to be king. I quit. I sometimes wonder if some of our leaders in Washington, D.C. haven't already abdicated. And so, because I want them to show up and get something done. But politics play a big role, not just up in Washington, D.C., but in your offices as well. So really be careful with that. Here's some successful keys into delegation. I like to research current articles for my talks. If you can, I also use the Bible, which is over 2,000 years old. Almost every leadership principle that I've seen successful today, actually you can find in the Bible, 2,000 years ago. So even though I research the new articles, I'm looking for the principles of today that were found successful even back in the days of the Bible. So keep that in mind. This guy, Kevin Eikenberry, developed a group, and he is all about supporting leaders and making sure that we have successful leadership. And he said these three things are important: explaining the context and purpose for doing a new skill, outlining the steps involved in doing a new skill, and clarifying by answering questions that students might have or subordinates or people under you may have. If you can't answer why you're doing something, should you be asking? Should you be telling someone to do it? Because I like folks that work for me that ask questions. People that don't ask questions, they don't usually turn out to be the best employees. And well, Lynn, what if you explain everything? There's a lot of different ways to learn. There's visual learners, there's auditory learners, there's a lot of different types of learning. And if, especially as a new leader, you don't really know the people's leadership styles or learning styles that are up under you. And so it's so important for you to understand what Kevin Eikenberry is saying here. Make sure explaining the context and the purpose for doing the new skill. Change management is so important for leaders. And I can honestly tell you, in the ophthalmic field, we've gone through to a tremendous amount of change. Even since the COVID stop of 2020, things didn't come back to what we call the normal. We have what they say is a new normal now. And so we have to adjust. And there's a lot of difficulty right now in finding people that can work on a team these days, because that little break that we had from in our society during our COVID response, we haven't necessarily adjusted to that. Okay, abdication within our industry. Ooh, Lynn, have you ever gone into a practice where you felt the owner abdicated? Oh, that is a very good question. Well, let me tell you of a story. I was in, almost said the state. I was speaking at a conference, and this doctor said this to me. He said, Lynn, there's so much drama in my office. After my last patient leaves, I kick the door closed and I listen for my last employee to leave. He may not have abdicated his responsibility as a doctor, but as a leader, he is checked out. He is so overwhelmed with the chaos. He is so over all the drama in his office. He doesn't have any answers. Well, I'm going to tell you that that's not the best way to handle this situation. I would rather him terminate all his employees. And I don't advocate for termination, but I'm just saying he has to step back into the role of leadership. He cannot abdicate away his responsibilities, because they could be robbing him blind on the other side of that door. He would never know it just because he closed the door. Leaders have to step into the fiery furnace if they have to, and snatch their employees out of the fire if he cares about them. Because there's good people on the other side of that door. But we let drama overwhelm the office, and then that's what makes us want to abdicate. It's like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why. I need to put up with this every day. I'm ready to retire. I'm selling out to one of the companies because I'm just tired of it. Leadership takes some time, guys. It takes time to build a team. And so you're farther and farther away if you're abdicating your responsibilities and not taking care of business. It can be the fall of your organization, the fall of your group. Never quit. Quitting is never an option. That's one thing that the military taught us. If you want to go home, you have to keep fighting until we come and get you. But don't quit. Quitting is never going to be an option. So keep that in mind. The difference between the two. Delegation requires trust. If you trust your people, you'll give them more responsibility. You'll allow them to step up. Back in the old days, one of the things we used to do in an office meeting is the boss would walk in and the office manager would walk in and tell them about the state of the front desk, the state of the techs, the state of optical, the state of our overall business. And I do not think that is the best way to raise up your office. Who knows more about the front desk than the people at the front desk? Who knows more about teching than the people teching? And who knows more about optical than the people in optical? So I advocate strongly to make sure that you at least delegate the responsibility of reporting on their areas back to the team, because they're the ones doing it every day. You can give them the guidelines, but they need to be reporting back on how well they're meeting their goals, because that'll keep the frustration down for the owner or the doctor that's in charge. Taking personal responsibility for your work is something that we must delegate to each and every one of our workers. Delegation is a way of training, a way of lifting up your employees. Abdicating, on the other hand, is like, don't do it, I'll do it myself. Don't do it. I mean, you're paying somebody, and you know, kids today, they want to be paid a lot of money. And you know, abdicating for them would be, oh, okay, I'm just going to be on Facebook for 4 hours of my day. And that's abdication means they quit working and now they're doing something that's not called work. And so maybe a play on words here, but it's the same concept. What we needed you to do and what you're doing is not the same thing. So a delegation would be trusting someone to get the job done. And when you see an employee that's on their phone half the day, you're not going to delegate anything to them. You actually just want them to do the minimum. Hey, I ask you to do this, this, and this. People ask me all the time, Lynn, why do I have to put up with this all day? I say, you don't. What should I do? Have them to clock out. Well, who's going to do the work? You already told me they're not doing the work. If your employees have noticed that you're going to let them get away with it, they'll keep abdicating their responsibilities all day. Now the leaders abdicate. Now the employees are abdicating away. I'm just telling you this from a leadership role, you're making many me's in your office every day. If you're a good leader, you're going to have good many leaders. Oh, you didn't say good followers? No, smart offices are raising leaders, not employees. Okay, what about those offices where we don't know? Well, let's say this. In the military, if you refuse to take leadership training, that was your last enlistment. If you would not sign for more leadership training, the military said, we don't need you. It's time to get out. In a medical office, you need people like you need a contact lens program director. You need an optical program director. You need a front desk program director. You need somebody that takes care of all of the compliance items, HIPAA, OSHA. You want somebody to make sure that fraud isn't going on in your office. All of these things need to be done. And when we delegate to the right people, the job gets done. And I'm going to tell you something about delegation. It should be delegating for reward, because when they do a good job, you need to tell them they did a good job. You need to reward them for doing a good job. And then they want to raise the bar a little bit higher and do a better job the next time. Abdicating, on the other hand, when they see you quit, they want to quit too. If you don't want to be king, I don't even want to be one of your followers. That's exactly what happens in an environment where there's no leadership. Okay, delegation. Not everybody is ready for delegation. You can't give somebody a responsibility that's not ready for it. Let's say this. Okay, so I got a new person. They've never assisted with a minor procedure, and they don't know what a cannula is or a syringe is. It's not fair to delegate that responsibility to them. So with delegation, you have to make sure they're ready to receive the delegation responsibility before you give it to them. And okay, you should never perceive that you should never give a delegation or let somebody think you're no longer over them. Okay, didn't you tell me this? Oh, here's an example. When we had a young lady, we had one of our section supervisors got sick. And so we asked his second to step up into that position and until he got better. Well, she did an amazing job while he was out. But when he came back, she did not want to relinquish that responsibility. She wanted to continue to come to the meetings. She could not understand why she had to take a step back. The authority was an issue for her. Let's say this: you can't be a good leader if you can't be a good subordinate. And so if you're a leader, let's say you're a section leader and there's an office leader over you. If you can't be subordinate to that office leader, if you're talking bad about that office leader, you're not ready for office leadership. I remember when I was young in the military and I was critical of our leadership. I had a supervisor remind me when I went up to the next level, he said, you say they a lot. It's no longer they. What you mean is we. And so it's so important for you to know that when you're delegating, you're putting somebody in a leadership responsibility. They can't trash the leadership while they're being delegated. It's so important to make sure you understand that. The responsibility remains with the person in authority. So if it's my responsibility and I gave it to someone else and things go wrong, I have to take the responsibility for it. There was an incident in the military where nuclear weapons, this is made national news, so I'm not telling any military secrets, but nuclear weapons were moved from one base to the next. Well, it was supposed to be practice nukes, not real nukes. Well, the real nukes got moved and a general got fired. Check this out. The general did not load the nukes. He did not fly the airplane, but they were up under his responsibility. And so his span of control was being questioned. And so they removed him from that leadership role because of that. If we could just get people in our industry, in our offices, the owners to understand that they don't move away from the responsibility when they delegate. They still own it. It's so important to get that. All right, a lot of different leadership styles out there. I like this Venn diagram because you see the areas that are overlapping are the strongest areas in the diagram. Every now and again, you need to be a different type of leader. I might need to come in and be a demanding leader because my subordinates may not understand what needs to be done. But as they understand and they perform better and better and better, I'm taking the vice off of them so they can move more freely to do everything that they need to do. And so making sure that your leadership style is what your team needs at that time is very, very important. And so there's a lot of different leadership styles out there. And you need to know, is this the correct leadership style for my team? One of the things that I really advocate for, it's called a climate assessment survey. It's a survey that goes out to everyone in the organization. They don't put their names on it. I even advocate for it to be electronic because we know each other's handwriting. Some of the employees write like doctors. Nothing offensive, doctors, but you know the joke. Okay, so anyway, but if you do it electronically, it's just keystrokes and typing. So it's hard to tell who it is unless they use certain language or certain verbiage that everybody's familiar with. Nobody really knows. And a climate assessment survey will tell you where your subordinates think the problem is. And sometimes that it will fall back in the leadership area. Failure to respond, failure to react to certain situations. So it's so important to understand this. So we must know and understand our leadership style versus our leadership style for our current team needs. And I can't stress highly enough current team needs, because it doesn't mean it's going to be that way the whole time. I see a lot of times when I go into a practice, the leadership style never changes. And even though the subordinates have changed and they're better equipped to do everything that needs to be done, they're still being reigned over very heavy-handed. Now, when do you back off? If a lot of doctors out there need a break. I love the concept of scribing. Scribing is where there's a tech in the room with the doctor, and the doctor's talking and the tech is typing everything in. It is still the doctor's responsibility to look over that note before it's signed. And so the scribe can make a mistake, but the mistake goes back to the doctor if it's not caught. Typical delegation, and it's probably one of the best examples I'm gonna come up with on the fly. Leadership is continuously assessing. Yes. Let's talk about a change. We're going to implement a new electronic medical record. Oh, yes. The last one drove us crazy. You ain't seen crazy until you try to implement the new one. So what about the change management? Did you talk to your staff about that at all? Nah, we got to just tell them what to do and tell them how to do it. Are you going to scale your appointments back? No, we'll be fine. We're going to go with a full schedule and a new EMR. When half of your staff quits, you'll understand you missed the boat when it came down to trying to implement change correctly. The people that needed to execute the change was never consulted. And so they are going to point fingers at the leadership. It's so important for you guys to make sure you understand you lead people. You manage programs, but you lead people, and people have feelings. And unfortunately, in our country right now, feelings are more important than the mission in many cases. I'm not one of those consultants, by the way. I don't want to talk about your feelings until we talk about the mission, because your feelings are not going to make us money. The mission is going to make us money. And so I'm not saying that your feelings are not important, but it's important to keep the main thing the main thing. The people make the mission happen. And so we have to listen to the people. The direction comes from the leadership. If everything is gloom and doom, it's because the leaders let it go too far without making any adjustments. Productivity. Anytime we implement something new, it may slow down productivity. We have to plan that. If you want a successful implementation, you need to have it planned correctly. And so it's important to make sure you have a good plan. And the constant coaching throughout the process. You don't want your folks to just show up in your office when something is wrong. They think of you as the Grim Reaper then. Only time you come out is to take off someone's head. You need to go out there and make sure that hey, how things going today? I love the doc that I work with. He'll go out and say, hey guys, we did a great job today. Or he'll say, hey, tomorrow we got a better shot at doing it better. He doesn't beat them down. He just wants to keep it positive and raise it up, raise the bar. A lot of leaders don't know when to surge or when to back things down, when to put their hands on something or when to take their hands off, when to stand it down. I'm going to tell you, when things are going really, really bad, would you hesitate to shut the office down for a few days? How catastrophic was the event? Was there a hurricane or a tornado and you tell them, oh, your neighborhood got wiped out, but we got to put our office back together. You need to be at work in the morning at 8. That's not the best way to handle it. So leaders need to understand that the people, they invest in you and your business every day. You got to make sure you're continuously making sure that they're okay, they have everything they need, that you're massaging this. You care about them and you want them to care about the mission. Keep that in mind. We talked about abdicating. Abdicating means pretty much washing your hands of the whole scenario and walking away and letting whatever will be, will be. Delegating is not the same thing. Delegating is trusting someone that you've trained to do a job, to do it in your absence. You're still the responsible party for it. This has been a great day. I hope that you learned something. I hope you understand the importance of delegating and the importance of staying away from abdicating your responsibilities to your subordinates. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you on the subject. I hope we see each other again soon. Have a great day.